Welcome back, YouTube. Today I'm going to walk you through a potential lower body session you could use with a quad focus. And I'm going to walk you through both visual and verbal, the cues that you want to be using when you're going through each exercise. Okay, so we're going to be making sure that not only is the exercise selection and order good, but also that the form and execution of each movement is on point. Now, this is just an example of a lower body session. I'm only going to walk you through the main movements, so at the end I'll explain things that I might potentially add on at the end of the session, but I just want to give you guys an idea of the thought process towards putting a session together, but more importantly the cues towards form and execution of each exercise. Don't forget, if you do enjoy the video, please do drop a like and a comment, especially if you've got any questions, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Okay, so whenever you're training any muscle group, you ideally within a session want to make sure that you're training it across its full range, and you can do that by selection of movements. Okay, so in particular you might want to pick movements that challenge that muscle in its short range, challenge that muscle in its lengthened range if possible, then challenge that muscle across its mid-range. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example of what that might look like across the movements we're going to use in particular for our quads. Okay, so again, this is a quad focused session. There is going to be a little bit of hamstrings in there, just so you know, again, we're making sure we're hitting, say, a muscle group 2-3 times a week, but it is going to be a majority quad focused session. So what we're going to do is we're going to look through one, a leg extension, which is going to challenge the quad in its shortened position. Two, we're going to go through a front raise split squat, which is going to help challenge the quads in its lengthened position. We're going to go through a leg press, which is going to really challenge that mid-range of the quads, and we're also going to look at a hamstring curl, like I said, to add in a little bit of hamstring. They're the four main movements we're going to go through. Okay, now again, as I've said, you might want to add in movements here and there. You know, if you're doing a full body split, you might want to add in a little bit of chest, a little bit of back. If you're, you know, doing an add-on split, you might want to add on a little bit of arms, shoulders at the end of the session. Whatever you want to do in terms of how you put your program, your sessions together, it's completely up to you. This is just an example of what that might look like, and again, more importantly, to go for the form execution of these movements. Okay, so when we're training each muscle group, like I said, we want to train that shortened range, lengthened range, and mid-range as best as we can. Okay, and again, not every exercise, you're going to be able to find every exercise that challenges it perfectly, but it's a good idea to try and, you know, find movements that challenge as much of the range as possible across sessions across the week. Okay. However, in a session, it's probably best to challenge the shortened range first. Okay, because if you're challenging the shortened range last, by the time you get to that movement, you're going to be very tired through the lengthen to the mid-range, because you're going to have already trained that muscle group. And if you're tired from the lengthen to the mid-range, let's say we're talking for a quad for example, you're going to find it harder to get into that shortened range. So I would look at training the shortened range first to get as much out of that position of the muscle before you then look at training sort of mid to lengthened range. So we're going to start with a leg extension. Okay, now leg extension, real simple. Okay, however, a lot of people can butcher this exercise. Few things you want to look for when you're starting the leg extension. Okay, one, you want to make sure you're adjusting the seat height so that when you're in position, okay, your back is nice and solid in the seat. Ideally, we don't want any space in between the seat and your lower back. Secondly, you want your knees to be in line with the axis of the machine. Okay, so where the machine is rotating, okay, ideally you want your knees in line with that axis. And then thirdly, with the pad, you can move that pad as high up the leg as possible, right? I would go for what feels comfortable, but generally speaking, I'd probably move it as high up that leg as possible, okay? Now, when you're in position, your back's solid, your knees are in line with the axis of the machine, the pad on your shin is set. Make sure, if you've got something to hold on to on that leg extension, make sure you're holding on to it, okay? You literally want to think about pulling yourself into the seat. Okay. At no point through the movement do you want your low back or your hips coming out, right? So as you press up, you want to think about driving yourself and your hips back and down into the seat. Right? So you're going to drive your hips back and down into the seat as you drive up. Now, because this is a movement that's taking advantage of the shortened range, that's going to be the top of the movement. Make sure we force a good pause at the top. Okay, this is where we're focusing most of our energy, most of our thought process on this exercise. Okay, so pause at the top, take advantage of that shortened range, keep it nice controlled, all the way down, all the way back up. Okay, get as much range at the bottom of that leg extension as you can, as long as you get to the bottom, you're not coming so far down that it's causing your hips to come out. Okay, again, those hips always want to be in to that machine. Next, we're going to go for the front foot raise split squat. Okay, now again, quite straightforward movement. However, might cause a little bit of a challenge to balance if you're new to it. You can regress this movement and you can just do a standard split squat, so your front foot isn't raised. But having that front foot raise is going to allow a little bit more depth and a little bit more of the stretch of that back leg. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is obviously put your front foot on a raised surface. We don't want it to be too high. Think of like almost like the bottom step on your stairs. That sort of height, maybe even a touch lower. Okay. Make sure that front foot that is on that step, on that raised surface, we're thinking 3 points of contact, so heel underneath your big toe, underneath your little toe. That always wants to be on contact with that step. Okay, none of that wants to come off at any point, especially the heel. We don't want that heel coming off, right? Back leg behind you on your toes. Okay, make sure as you're dropping, right, you're thinking about that knee or that front foot traveling forward. Again, we don't want the heel to come off, so don't travel so far forward that the heel's going to come off, but travel as far forward as you can with that knee. Okay, make sure that knee is in line with the toes, if not slightly out. We don't really want that knee driving in. And keep tension all the way through. Drop as low as you can that is comfortable. Okay, don't drop too low if it's going to cause any uncomfort feeling within that back leg. And then as you drive back up again, 3 points contact within that front foot. But do keep this movement nice and slow. Okay, don't rush it. When you are dropping, you are putting that back leg into quite a lengthened position, so we don't want to be bouncing out of the movement. Okay, nice control, slow, pause at the bottom. And we're thinking about initiating, contracting that quad as we push out. Okay, next we're going to go into the hamstring curl. We're going to place the hamstring curl here just to give the quads a little bit of a rest before we take them through that mid-range. Okay, with the hamstring curl, very similar to the leg extension in the fact that we always want the hips to be pushed in and locked in to that machine. We don't want the hips coming out at any point. So again, make sure that back pad is set so your lower back is locked in, right? Make sure the pad for your shins, for your feet, is as high as it can come up the back of your calf. Okay, make sure that is as high as it can be. And then with the pad that's going to go across your knees, make sure that is locked in, make sure that is tight, right? If that is not tight, if that's not locked in, your hips are going to likely want to come out as we curl in, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, so lock that pad in, drive, push off that pad if the machine allows it. Okay, so we're always making sure the hips are driving in. Okay, so as you curl in, think you're driving your heels towards your bum, push off the machine itself, and drive the hips back and down. Okay, the hamstring curls takes advantage of the shortened range of the hamstring. That is going to be when the machine is at its back, at the back position. Okay, so when your heels are close to your bum, that's where we want to focus most of our energy and most of the pause. Okay, so pause at that bottom position of that hamstring curl. Nice controlled, don't rush it as always, but take advantage of that bottom position and have a slight pause there. Okay, then lastly we're going to look at leg press machine. Okay, now these machines will differ from gym to gym. So you might want to play around with it a little bit to get a feel of what works for you. The back pad, which you can lightly adjust, play around with that in terms of height and find the height that feels comfortable for you on your hips and that allows you to drop to a decent depth that where it doesn't want to bring your hips up. Okay, same as the hamstring curl, the leg extension, we always want those hips locked in. Okay, so play around with it and find an angle that allows that comfortable depth without the hips coming out. In terms of how far you want to drop with the pad, One, again, we don't want the hips coming out, but two, we also don't want our heel coming off the pad, okay? Again, it's going to be individual dependent, but as you drop down, find the depth that allows you to keep the heels on, the hips down. When you feel like you're getting to a point where either of those want to come out, that's your depth. From there, you're going to just drive straight back up, okay? If the leg press has handles, pull yourself in, okay? As you drive, keep 3 points of contact on your foot, on the pad, and as you drive, pull yourself in. Think you're driving your hips back and down into the machine. That's going to give you a better connection to your quads, which is what we're going for here. In terms of foot placement, in all honesty, I'll just find a foot placement that's comfortable for you. Don't try and put your feet in a position that's uncomfortable, that puts any strains on your knees. Just find a position that's comfortable for you. You might find turn your feet slightly out, might work better for you. Trial and error, play around with it, find what is comfortable. So there you have it. There's 3 main quad exercises which are going to help challenge that shortened through to the lengthened range. Then you've got 1 hamstring exercise in there as well to, again, you know, if we're looking at a lower body focus session, to help train each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. This is just, you know, base movements for a quad focused lower body session. Again, you might want to put add-ons into this session. You might want to put a bit of arms, shoulders, maybe you want a bit more legs, calves, whatever you want to do. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what a lower body session, the majority of it, might look like, and in particular the form and execution and the cues for those exercises that we've included. Hopefully this has helped. Got any questions on it, please do find them across. If it has helped, please do drop a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.